We issued a press release yesterday, which you can also find, saying a bunch of things, but most importantly, that the planned relocation of the refugee-eligible residents of Camp Ashraf to Camp Liberty has collapsed and stalled into a situation where there is no reasonable prospect of safe movement and early resolution. Madam Rajavi has made incredible concessions, relying on the good faith of both the United Nations and the United States to put many people at risk, and volunteering to send, as you know, 400 representatives to Camp Liberty, even though the facility is not near readiness for human habitation. And as you just heard, there's not only no water there, but this is, by its design, by its aerial photograph, by all the components that we, as former military officers and national security officers, have studied, Camp Liberty, and the name is ironic, Camp Liberty is being built as a prison, and it's being built as a prison to hold men and women who are free and should be in a refugee-eligible status. Well, we no longer have influence inside the United States government, but you know what, ladies and gentlemen? We have a lot of influence as witnesses. We are 21, but there are many more, dozens of members of our Congress, as you know, who are watching this situation intensely. And we will not stand by as silent witnesses when 3,400 people are going to be moved into a concentration camp under the control of the government that has twice committed massacres. Someone counseled me, they said, well, that's a very explosive term. You should be careful about using that. But you know what, ladies and gentlemen? A camp that has shrunk to less than half a kilometer, concrete walls, barbed wire, police inside and outside. No reason, by the way, that police are needed inside the compound. The residents are not permitted to bring vehicles, household goods, living equipment. There is absolutely no argument in the world that you can make to me that this is a safe, habitable, temporary location for people who are refugee eligible and who are being processed out of Iraq. And I think Madam Rajavi is absolutely correct. She will not permit, nor will the residents of Camp Ashraf accept not only a substandard but a subhumane habitation which the Iraqis have not even taken the trouble to put together in a presentable fashion. The inducement to move into Camp Liberty is full of misrepresentations. In December, everyone was told, in fact we were told by our own State Department, the camp was ready for habitation. It turns out to be not even ready today. Water, electricity, sanitation. We were told that the Iraqis would not make any arrests of any of the residents in transit. That was just contradicted by the Iraqi Prime Minister a few days ago. All of the things that we were trying to rely on are not reliable. So for this to work, we've got to have the United Nations Ambassador Kobler. We've got to have the United States of America, Secretary Clinton, insist that the conditions that were promised and the conditions that are minimally accepted have to be fulfilled before a movement of this size and this risk can be undertaken. The few words I just wanted to add about the MEK listing, because this is a particularly disappointing reality for us as Americans. I was in the FBI in 1997 when the organization was put on the list by the State Department. The list has unfortunately become a political accommodation and a tool that in this particular case is not just a passive action by the United States, but the maintenance on that list, as I said, gives both the Iranian regime and elements in the Iraqi government a license to imprison, try in kangaroo courts, torture, and kill members of the MEK, which have forsworn violence, have no terrorist intention or deliberations. They've never had. You're going to hear that from Colonel Martin in a few moments. This listing has gone beyond anybody's forbearance or understanding. In August of 2010, the United States Circuit Court in Washington, D.C., which is one of our highest courts in the country, found that the Secretary of State and the State Department had violated the constitutional rights of the PMOI because it had denied them fair process in the listing, the continuation of the listing of the organization on the Foreign Terrorist Organization list. They directed the Secretary of State to come back to the court and explain what the criteria were being used to maintain this determination. We've not heard back, unbelievably, incredibly, we've not heard back from the Secretary of State. We're told that they are deliberating on this. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a deliberation that if you just looked at the 21 people who signed this list, you could make a finding beyond any reasonable doubt that this organization is not a terrorist organization, never has, and should be delisted immediately. We have urged in our letter that Ambassador Jeffries, Secretary Clinton get personally involved and directly engaged in this process while there's still time to rescue it. In our separate letter to the Secretary General of the United Nations, we said that he had not fulfilled the mandate and that the High Commissioner for Refugees was failing to not only implement the Memorandum of Understanding, which Mrs. Rajavi mentioned, but to set the basic conditions that have to be done here to get a safe resolution. So we will continue to speak out. We will continue to fight hard. We will be witnesses to what happens. All of these horrific things that you saw on that video, which is particularly appalling to us and even more so to Colonel Martin, to see those soldiers with American-supplied uniforms, American-supplied equipment, committing murder, just committing Holocaust and genocide, is absolutely outrageous. There's never even been an investigation internally or externally about what's happened. But we believe, as many war criminals and dictators have found out in later years, the long arm of justice and the right to justice extend through the decades and through the years, and it's my hope that the people we saw in that video will be brought to justice and punished for the murders that they've committed. So thank you again for your commitment. I salute, as I said, the men and women in Camp Ashraf. America has been very slow here to get on board. It's our job as former government officials and as Americans to make sure that the United States does much more than it's done to safely get the resolution and the protection that has to be done here. Thank you.